Hey there to my 916 subscribers, my future subscribers, and all the people that secretly watch me without subscribing. So today I'm going to give you guys a peek into how my brain works. I had planned to make two videos about the world building, what it takes to build worlds in my brain, and what I go through to do it, because I just wanted you guys to understand what goes into it and how differently. I did one video explaining the difference between how I write and how my husband writes, but really the way I build a world is different depending on what the story is. And I'm going to do the kids book. By kids book I mean a book I wrote for middle school age kids. I'm going to do that one first. I still have all those materials for that one. The other book I want to do, I looked for the materials and they seem to have vanished, even though they were here 3 years ago. And I'm going to do that in a separate video because it's going to be mostly talking. There's not really anything to show you because it's all missing. But I will do the kids book, or what do you call it? Like when it's written for middle school kids. Anyway, the book is called Enigmas of Auslage, and the name of the town, Auslage, as well as the name of the cave that's in here. I got the name by putting German words together and just creating them. So I'm sorry if it's a tongue twister or difficult to say. My daughter did the cover on the book, which is really awesome. But anyway, I want to show you just kind of how the process went with that. When I went to write the book, I started off with notes, right? I had these notes that I wrote. And it was just simple little notes that I wrote myself, explaining a couple of ideas. Like this one, class goes on a field trip into the woods, which it didn't end up being in the woods because this was just ideas I was writing down. I wrote down that I wanted bats and study bats in caves and get lost in the lava tubes. And the reason I went with that kind of route when I was writing these notes is because I remember as a kid I wrote a story, and it was about some kids that went into the woods and got lost in a cave. And I wish I still had it, but my teacher loved it so much that she wanted to put it in the contest, and I wasn't ready for attention, so I threw it away. I know, brilliant. So anyway, the rest of this on these notes was nothing like what I ended up with this story. It was more about that story from when I was a kid. And then I had wrote down these other notes describing the area that I wanted it to go into and where I wanted to come out at, and about a beautiful area that's kind of a utopia looking area. And so that's where the story began. That was the absolute beginning. And then I started thinking about the idea behind the story. And I was thinking like 7 short stories was the original plan. And then as I wrote them, they just kind of grew together and ended up one long story. So it's basically one story with 7 chapters. And so I wrote these notes, and I literally wrote the date that it started and the date for each chapter and the basic ideas behind each thing I wanted. And then I started, I know it's going to seem a little crazy to some people, I'm sure. But then I started sketching out ideas for like buildings, shapes, sizes. I made a list of what buildings need to be in a town because I decided I was going to design the entire town. And then I started laying out where the buildings would be going in the town and where the woods were. And so that was just basic sketching. And that was me writing notes about how big I needed each building to be in order to be logical to what it should be in real life. And then I started going through writing down all the names that I liked and what they could be used for and who they could be used for and how, how they could be related and what their jobs would be, and it just started spiraling. And so then I had these ideas of all these people, and because I had all these ideas of people, I wrote out these little cards, and there's a card for each person that gives their name, who they're related to, what their jobs are, their age, their personality, and everything. And then I was like, well, it'd be a lot easier to write the story if I knew what the people looked like, right? So back then, it was before I could really get on into AI and have AI design people for me. I'll put that aside for a second. So I got into Google, and what I would do is I would type in a first name, and then I would put the age. And I would scroll through pictures of real people and find pictures of people that kind of looked how I wanted them to look. And then I put them on poster boards in like a family tree kind of thing. So if you see yourself in these pictures, I'm sorry. But I'll just show a couple of them to give you an idea. So I created these poster boards. And they're like family trees. Like that's the main family in the story. And some of these people are not even alive in the story. It's just like, you know, for reference. So if I need to talk about somebody, I know what they look like, you know. So I ended up with, I don't know, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of these poster boards with family trees on them. And I put them around my bedroom. I took everything off my walls and I put these around my bedroom. So as I was writing, I could reference them. And so, yeah, I was doing that. But then I was like, well, what if I'm not home and I want to work on the story? And because I was writing it on paper to start. So then I got a photo album. And, well, I'll skip that for a second because that's the town and stuff. But I got a photo album. And I did the same thing. I put their pictures and then their names, who they were, and everything about them, all the information. And so I've got a photo album with all the pictures of the people in the town. And just in case you're wondering, I'll show you these in a minute, but well, I guess I can show them to you here. But these, this is the, wait, I was confused. This is the family trees on paper. So I'd know who was who while I was writing. Oh no, that one tore. Anyway, that was the family trees. Alright, so that's a whole photo album of just the people of the town. So that's where it started, and I hadn't even started writing at this point. I just had the idea written down. Right? And so then I was talking to my daughter. Because I already had an idea of where I wanted the story to go, and I needed this little creature. And I'm looking at a creature, you know, that's fictional, and I described it to my daughter. And I'm going to give the picture to AI, to ChatGPT, before I put this video up. And at least that's the plan, and have them make pictures of the colors and stuff that I want them so you can see better. But that was my daughter's sketch based on what I told her. And that's the creature I wanted. Okay. And yes, I know. My brain just kind of runs with things. So then, alright, so this was going through explaining all the businesses in town and who works at them and all their information based, you know, on where they worked. And then I started with the actual building designs. So like here, I don't know, you can't, if you can see it, that's the school. That's the the library. Gas station. And oh yeah, okay, so that was the school library, not the regular library. So, and then this is like showing where the stuff laid together, were next to each other. So anyway, I did that with everything in town. So, you know, I've got the houses, I've got an apartment complex. These are a bunch of houses, lots and lots of houses, cabins, duplex, and a house with a wood shop. Anyway, so I designed all these, the bank, cafe, all this stuff. And then I also made plans and laid out the entire town, so I knew where everything went. This is just more of the family tree stuff. And so basically before I could even start writing, I had to know who everybody was, where they all lived, where they all worked, how they were all connected, and everything. That way I could have consistency, because I don't know how many times I've read books in my life and I'm reading something and I'm like, wait, that doesn't add up to whatever was in the beginning of the story. And so there's a lot of contradictions in the way that people write sometimes. And then, of course, I still hadn't started writing, but I knew specific things that were going to be in the story, because I did kind of like a quick outline of what I wanted. And so then I did research on auras and research on animals, specific types of animals, what groups of animals were referred to as, depending on the type of animal. Let me see what that is. I did research on telekinesis, and I did research on foxes, because there are some foxes in the story. So I had to know what the adults looked like. I had to know what the babies looked like, how to care for them, because in the story they do take care of some foxes they find. I did research on first aid for unconscious people. I did research on a place, wildlife sanctuary, that appears in the story for a moment. And I did research on psychic dreams. And I did research on comas. So I had to have all of that research done. All the families built, all the housing, buildings, everything completed before I was comfortable enough to start writing. And then I got these folders out of order. I started writing the story by hand. This is actually backwards, but anyway, I started writing it by hand, you know, back when I could see better and knew what I was actually doing. And let me put these in order, because now it's going to bug me knowing they're out of order. So I wrote the story by hand, and that way I could take it with me wherever I went. I didn't have to worry, because I didn't have a laptop. Well, I had a laptop, but it's kind of... Actually, I don't know if I had the laptop yet. I don't remember. But I started writing it by hand. And then I got it typed into a computer. That's the original picture my daughter drew for the cover. But I got it, started typing it onto the computer. This was before it was finished. I was just, so I typed it up, printed it out, and then was making lots of notes. And I did that multiple times. Every rewrite, I would print it out and make notes. So that was the first time I printed it. This was the second time I printed it. More notes. And then this was the third time I printed it. More notes. And So that's how the process of my brain works, and that's how that story got together, got assembled. And if you guys are interested, like I said, it's called Enigmas of Auslage. And by the time I published it, I had changed my last name to Blevins, so you have to look under Stephanie M. Blevins on Amazon, or I don't even know how many websites have the book, but Amazon's the easiest. Everybody knows Amazon. So anyway, if you're interested, feel free to check it out. And I will be back in a little bit to explain about the other book. But this was the book that I wrote for middle school aged kids because my son was in middle school at the time. And so basically when I was writing the story, I was trying to write it to his age, to his audience. And then before I published it, I actually read the entire thing to him, even though I know he was old enough to do it. But for some reason, he really wanted me to read it to him. I read it to him, lost my voice doing it, but I did it anyway. We read it in one night, which is crazy. I mean, it literally, I was up all night reading it to him. And he really loved it. And so I was like, okay, he loves it, then I can publish it. And so that's what I did. Just in case anybody's curious, though, the scene here, I won't give too much detail, but they found this like lake thing where they had dove down in some water and come up into a lake. And so these are a bunch of the kids, the main kids in the story. And that little creature I was telling you about is right there. And so I will try to get a picture put up. Hopefully I can go find a picture, or not find a picture, but have AI make a picture that's accurate to what I imagined in my head when I wrote it. And yeah, so I will be back in a bit to talk about the other story. So please like, subscribe, comment, and share, and get your friends to do the same thing. Bye.